Greetings, Internet faithful. I am some guy named Rob from On Your Marks Wrestling, and this is Rob Recaps Smackdown Live for Tuesday, May the 1st, 2018. The TLDR on this show that is coming to you live from my hometown in Montreal, Quebec, Canada, is that it was a go-home show. And honestly, I'm tired of go-home. This is the second week in a row that we've had go-home shows, so this essentially is a throwaway episode of SmackDown. You're not really going to get a whole lot. They didn't do a whole hell of a lot to set up matches for the Backlash pay-per-view. SmackDown was just sort of spinning its wheels this week, and it's kind of a shame because Raw was quite a bit more cohesive as shows go. This one felt very, very jumbled. It felt very slapdash. It actually felt more slapdash than the house show that Lee and I were at last night. Now, one of the things that they did end up doing was just to kick off the show, they had Paige in a backstage segment saying that due to the way the match ended between Shinsuke Nakamura and AJ Styles at the Greatest Royal Rumble, with the low blow and the brawling on the outside, that this match coming up at Backlash between AJ Styles and Shinsuke Nakamura will be a no disqualification match. So things looked like they were going to start on a good note. Then we cut to an overly long segment of Miz TV, where basically the whole purpose of this was to try and build some heat between Randy Orton and Jeff Hardy, who basically said that they were cool with each other on the mic, which was really awkward, which forced the segment to go way too long to set up a Shelton Benjamin coming out saying he deserves something because he beat Randy Orton. The long and the short of it is it ends up turning into a tag team match with Randy Orton teaming with Jeff Hardy to face The Miz and Shelton Benjamin. And the big problem with that match is that the actual start of the match happened when they were at commercial break, and coming out of the commercial break, they had a whole bunch more action before going to another commercial break. So what ultimately ended up happening is even though the faces win, and it's, and then Orton kind of turns on Hardy, hits him with an RKO out of nowhere, the segment just felt incredibly long. It just felt like it dragged and needed to be a lot shorter, especially the Miz TV portion of things. It just seemed to take forever to get through. We then get a rapid-fire succession of promos. We get the Iconics doing their annoying little bitches routine, and quite honestly, the sooner that they morph them out of this thing of where one of them is trying to do impressions of other people but can't even a little bit, the better. I find them incredibly irritating, and not in a good irritating way like these are the types of heels that I can't wait to see get a beatdown in the ring. These are the types of heels that I can't wait to see get hit by a speeding crosstown bus. Their gimmick is absolutely irritating. It's right up there with Woken Matt Hardy level irritating for me. I don't particularly care for it. The writers need to give them better scripts or let them do their own thing, because I understand they were way better in NXT, and I know people are going to say, well, they were better in NXT. Well, they're not in NXT now. They're on the main roster, they are live, and the material that they are given absolutely sucks. And this segment just fell completely flat. Next up, we get the New Day sort of meeting up with the Bar backstage. There's a whole gift of pancakes to the Bar, and either Sheamus or Cesaro, quite honestly, at this point, it doesn't really matter. One of them grabs the pancakes and tosses it aside, claiming that they could be poisoned, which I thought was pretty funny. The two of them get into a heated argument, and we end up with Sheamus challenging someone to a match, and Big E steps up right away and gets right in his face, saying that he cannot wait to step into the ring with Sheamus. Sheamus then says, well, I wasn't talking to you, and walks down to the shortest member of the New Day and towers over Xavier Woods and says, I was talking to you. Xavier Woods makes a wonderful Highlander reference by saying, your soul is mine, and thus ends the segment. That part was kind of entertaining. I'm glad they kept it as short as they could and still get the point across for the challenge for the match later tonight. And because what good is a go-home show without yet more promos, we have Rusev and Aiden English backstage. Lana joins up with them, and Lana speaks with Rusev saying, hey, you know what, you lost a bit of your edge. You seem to be being held back. What's going on? Rusev's like, I'm not being held back. I have my own holiday. What could possibly be holding me back? Cue Aiden English walking into frame, so I think they're trying to set up something between the two of them, a split up of the Rusev Day tag team. It was okay-ish. I guess. Is this the best that they have for Rusev? Is to have him feud with Aiden English? This is the best that they can do with Rusev? They can't even get him on the show properly. He doesn't have a match. He has a backstage segment. I'm wondering if they had a little bit more for him to do, but it had to be cut short because the Miz TV thing ran so long, or because, surprise, surprise, we have another promo this time in the ring. It's Big Cass who just decides to show up, and he comes out right before the commercial break. Coming back from commercial break, he decides to spend his time talking about his match against Daniel Bryan, about how he looks like a superstar. He is 7 feet tall, he is muscular, he is handsome, he doesn't look like the crowd in Montreal. It's at this point that the Montreal crowd does one thing really, really well. They decide to start a "We don't give a fuck" chant, but in French, so they don't get censored, or they don't have the audio levels completely dropped out of the mix for the TV broadcast, because I'm guessing they assume that no one's really going to know what they're saying. But for those of you who were wondering what they were chanting during the Big Cast segment, it was "On s'en calisse," which basically translates to "We don't give a fuck" or "We don't give a shit." It's one step closer to it's like one step removed from "fuck off," basically. This segment drags its wheels for a little while though, which is probably why the crowd started turning on Cass. Because his promo last week on Miz TV was actually pretty good. He ends up bringing out a midget wrestler, or little person wrestler, or dwarf wrestler, or whatever it is that you want to call it. I don't know what the correct terminology is for that these days. I'm just going to call him midget wrestler. He's dressed like Daniel Bryan, and of course, in comes about another 2 to 3 minutes of short jokes, which all fell flat. Truth be told, the way that this segment was being pulled off, it was almost like you had a 7 foot Enzo Amore in the ring cutting a promo. Eventually, he says, "Okay," and scene, and they cut in. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, this is local wrestling legend, whatever his name is, insert name here, and take a bow. So they do, they have the midget wrestler take a bow and kind of play to the crowd, and the crowd kind of gives them some applause. And of course, you know what's going to happen. The midget wrestler is going to turn his back on Big Cass, and when he turns around, he is the victim of the big boot. The deadliest thing in the arsenal of a tall, lanky wrestler. We follow this up in the ring with, surprise, surprise, another promo. We have Renee Young, who welcomes AJ Styles to the ring to talk about the controversial ending to his match at the Greatest Royal Rumble. AJ Styles, okay, I'm gonna be very, very honest here. I tuned this promo out. It didn't engage me at all. It was basically something to the effect of AJ Styles says he will do anything in his power to defend his title, including breaking the rules. As he's going on and talking about whether or not he's going to apologize to Shinsuke Nakamura, Samoa Joe's music hits. He comes out and basically cuts a promo on Roman Reigns, which is weird because Roman Reigns isn't even there. This match is kind of awkward in its setup in that you have superstars across brands and they can't really answer for each other. So it's the long and the short of it is once he's done with Reigns, he's coming for the WWE Championship. Nakamura's music hits and Joe turns around thinking that he's going to get hit from behind or he's going to be a victim of a low blow. And they train the camera on Samoa Joe a little bit too long because you miss the low blow that Nakamura delivers to AJ Styles in the ring. And after that, AJ oversells this kind of to death. Shinsuke teases a Kinshasa, runs past him to the other side and kind of laughs maniacally before actually hitting a Kinshasa and leaving AJ Styles in the ring as he kind of walks out and stands tall and looks incredibly psychotic. He's a great heel. I don't know why they haven't turned him heel earlier. And because 5 consecutive promos is simply not enough, we have a backstage segment with Asuka and Becky Lynch and Charlotte talking about how they're going to teach Carmella and the Iconics some respect. Becky Lynch is going through something of a crisis because she cost Asuka her debut SmackDown match. And, Asuka's all like, never mind that, don't worry about it, tonight we're going to make them pay. And that's when Charlotte comes in and they kind of complete the promo. And if I sound somewhat disinterested or kind of disengaged from this whole thing, it was just too many promos in a row. There was just way too much of one block, like a solid block of promos after what was effectively a single match. There was one match on the card in the first hour, and everything else was promos. and the promos carried up over into starting the second hour as well. I believe it was about 15-ish minutes into the second hour that we got our second match. And this reminds me of the Raw from a couple months ago, where essentially in the first 2 hours you had two matches because of all the promos and how promo heavy everything was. We finally cut back to some in-ring action as, oh my god, we have a wrestling match? I heard rumors that they had wrestling matches at these wrestling shows. We finally get the Xavier Woods versus Sheamus match that was set up, I don't know, maybe about 45-50 minutes ago in a long-lost promo. This match was actually pretty entertaining. I liked how they played the size difference, the big heel versus the smaller face. Lots of really good quick moves by Xavier Woods. The match ends kind of weird. I really wish that they didn't just do the roll-up win. I would have liked to have seen Xavier Woods hit a finisher, hit that top rope elbow, which looks really spectacular. But I guess considering the match was pretty good, I'll take what I can get. It's right about this time in the show that I'm picturing Christopher Walken from his famous, in fact iconic skit on Saturday Night Live, where he's in studio with the Blue Oyster Cult, with the cowbell. And I'm thinking that Christopher Walken at this point is in the creative meeting for this episode of Smackdown Live, and he's looking at the writers around the table and going, guys, this is good, but we can do better. I got a fever, and the only cure is more promo. Because we get not one, but two more promos. The first one features Absolution making fun of Becky Lynch for costing Asuka her SmackDown debut, and then we follow that up with a promo where Absolution goes into Paige's office backstage to request a title match. Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose are essentially trying to leverage their relationship with Paige to say that, hey, we're all Absolution here, so we effectively control SmackDown Live. And Paige basically says, Absolution is dead. I don't know why they've decided to declare Absolution is dead. You can still use Absolution, or Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose as a basis for a faction called Absolution. I don't know why they decided to kill it off in its entirety. It doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense, but nothing on this show makes sense at this point. And because the WWE likes to have its unresolved cliffhangers, they decide to use this promo as their cut to commercial. Coming back from commercial, we have one of those sort of selfie videos from Zelina Vega. I keep wanting to say Zelina Vargas, but I know that's not the right name. We have Zelina Vega, who is outdoors talking about the debut of Andrade Cien Almas. For some reason, they decided to pick the windiest location that they could find, so that way if she turned in a certain direction, all you heard was... Yeah, that was irritating. Why they couldn't do this in a more controlled environment is beyond me. Why they couldn't do this outdoor segment in a location that had a wind barrier that would have been off camera to prevent this sort of thing from happening, or, God forbid, use an external microphone that has a dead cat on it that plugs into the cell phone. They make those. They cost like $50. I think the WWE has the budget for those sorts of things. Anyway, they leave in the bad audio, and they basically say Andrade is coming soon, but they don't say when. My guess is going to be the SmackDown after Backlash. This brings us to the main event of the night as Charlotte, Becky Lynch, and Asuka face off against Carmella and the Iconics in a 6-woman tag team match. This match is largely forgettable, mostly because the Iconics kind of suck in this match. They're not especially good in the ring. I don't know if it's ring rust, I don't know if it's nerves, or I don't know if it's because they were told to wrestle a certain way to put over the faces in a certain way. But man, did it take a long time before they executed moves that actually looked decent in the ring. Peyton Royce's kicks especially look terrible. They look like the kicks delivered by a 4-year-old, only with less power and less convincing it's less convincing that they might actually hurt you. The match again, and not very good. Probably the best spot of the night was Charlotte doing her moonsault off the top rope to the outside, taking out both Billie Kay and Carmella. That was good to see, and having seen it live the night before, impressed me a little bit more, I think. This moonsault, of course, was in the midst of the whole part that you get in a six-man tag or six-woman tag, where a face will take out a heel will take out that face, and so on and so forth until you get to the two legal people in the match. Asuka ends up locking in the Asuka lock for the submission victory, and the heels celebrate as we go off the air. And as if that wasn't enough, during this match, there was, you guessed it, a split screen promo for Backlash because we didn't have enough promos or packages for the evening. I'm going to say one thing. If I had been at the show in Ottawa last night and it resembled this show tonight in Montreal in any way, shape, or form, I would not have lasted to the intermission. I would have gotten out of my seat and fucked off by like 45 minutes in. I would have, 45 minutes in, I'd have been starting the car and making my way out, and I suspect most of the crowd would have as well. Yeah, this episode of SmackDown was not very good, and I have a bit of a hard time believing that this was the best that the creative team could come up with to sell a pay-per-view. Now, I understand you're coming off of another network event, and really you haven't had a whole lot of time to retool since WrestleMania, but this is why you plan long term. This is why you have long term storylines, so that way you can do this sort of thing. You can have several weeks of programming planned out and mapped out in advance, so you can just sort of roll with it and keep rolling and keep building toward the next thing and building toward the next thing. If I was not already a subscriber of the WWE Network, this show would not have helped at all. This show would have been, in fact, a deterrent from signing up for the network because, quite frankly, why should I sign up for a network and pay them extra money when the product that they're using to promote the network, they can't put any effort into it? This was a 2-hour commercial for Backlash with 3 matches. None of them were particularly great matches, I might add. Raw had that really great match between Seth Rollins and Finn Balor. That would have helped. I would have thought, if I subscribe to the WWE Network, I can get a lot more of this. But looking at SmackDown, I go, yeah, I don't want more of this. I don't want anything like this. I'm going to look elsewhere. So there you have it, folks. That was SmackDown for May the 1st, 2018. I want to thank all of you for listening. If you enjoyed the show, like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like the show, feel free to give a thumbs down, but put something in the comments. Let me know how I can do it better next time. Feel free to check out our Twitter feeds and our Facebook groups and all that other good stuff. We'll put links down in the doobly-doo. And until next time, take it easy.